Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Random Willis host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We're going to have a great show for you today again. Welcome aboard to my peeps, Nanette Bird Smith. Welcome aboard. Hi, y'all, she says. Bridge MCP, hi, all. You didn't say y'all, Bridge, but then you go ahead and you say, go Texas, so did New York. So did New York. Anyhow, folks, let's see. Gonna watch that after the show, probably share in a half hour or so. Okay, Bridge, let's see. Bridge MCP says leaked video. Dark money group brags about writing GOP voter suppression bills across the country. Amazing, right? It's like we knew that there's something called ALEC that has always done that for industry, for the corporations, to make sure that across the entire country these bills look almost unanimous so that these corporations can go and work in state after state after state under the same rules because they wrote the rules. A lot of people don't know about that either. Denny, Texas judge denies NRA bankruptcy suit. What does that mean for the bankruptcy? It means that now they're going to have to face that lawyer in New York. It means that their stuff is all at risk. They are thieves. People have been paying these guys $35 a month, $75 a month. They've been sending their money to the NRA thinking that these guys are out there really thinking about guns. We want to keep those guns in your hands because you have the Second Amendment right and those darn liberals want to take it away. You know what's so sad? I always talk about all people being good people in general. People are generally good. But when you take advantage of folks' gullibility, that is the ultimate evil. When you go onto YouTube and you see those salespersons, no, they are not, that they're making money from telling you they're going to teach you how to make money, and they're lying. They're making money from you trying to learn how to make money from them, but what they have to teach you has nothing to do with making money. Same thing is what the Republican folk does. What is it? We are going to, they tell you all the things. Oh, the minority leader just had a great meeting with the president, right? And he said, yes, I want to compromise. And then immediately he sends out a letter and said, that socialist in the White House wants to do the same thing. And that is to keep Republicans in a state of frenzy that somebody is coming to attack you. Brothers and sisters, I want to tell you this, and thank you, Deb Denny, for bringing that message out, Texas, about NRA, because it gives me a little narrative to give here. And folks, I'm going to get to the show in a little bit, but you know what we do here. You guys run the show. Anyhow, think about this. Why it is so important that we as enlightened progressives don't fall for the temporary ill will that many right-wingers and Trumpists have towards us. I'm asking you this I'm asking to bite your tongue. I'm asking you to tolerate. Because they have gotten themselves attached to a network of information that is happy to mislead them, that is happy to have them scared. You know, when they talk about critical race theory, oh, it's such a bad thing to teach. And by the way, it only became a big issue when they made it a big issue. But it's just about telling the truth. So please, when you're working with our brothers and sisters on the right, remember that you're working with a mind that's been brainwashed. And a lot of times they want to say the same about us. The difference is that what we believe in can be generally mathematically proven. But anyhow, Michael Rudnan says internet subsidy gives $50 a month discount for low-income Americans. Here's a better idea. Make the internet a public utility and offer local governments competitions to ISPs who currently enjoy regional monopolies and duopolies. Absolutely so. I agree with that. But, you know, unfortunately, Michael, what you're saying is that you want to eliminate the private sector out of providing internet service. Because here's the problem. If a private sector provides internet service, they can match one for one everything that the government can do, right? The employees, they can pay a good wage. or rather, they can match one for one in the technology. But for the same price, if all things else being equal, they have to have a cutout for their investors, the shareholder. They have to have a cutout for the bonuses for the executives. They have to have a cutout for all these things. In this scenario, whenever we are talking about public good, profit for the public good is an expense. And they will have an expense that you and I pay as a private sector for using that utility. So we have to decide how far we want to go. Do we want to allow, are there benefits to allowing the private sector to have a bid on things that we consider utility? I think we could make the case in certain areas, yes, as long as it's very highly regulated, because what we have is in as much as the price will be higher, the delta will be the cost of profits. We can say that it keeps a fight going for innovation. In other words, if these guys, that you could say innovation will continue anyway, because the government sector is going to buy the routers and all the technologies from the private sector anyway. We'd have to do some studies on that to see exactly how that would work. So requires some thought, but something worth taking a look at. 5 former IRS commissioners, Biden's proposals would create a fairer tax system. I have to wonder, how many trillions in untaxed revenues have the wealthy and their mega corporations evaded? Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says at least 7 trillion. I mean, it's probably quite a bit more than that. If we take a look at what goes on in this country, and you take a look at the wealth of the wealthy, it is obscene. And the reason that we don't revolt is because we don't have the grasp of how bad it is. There's a graphic out there on the internet, I remember, that showed that showed the exponential growth of wealth as we get into the 0.1%. And it's off the charts. Michael Rodden, I know, can find that. I mean, it is, when you look at the bars, the rich people are about this amount and the 0.1% is about that amount. We should find that graph sometime. Okay. Study showing 100% of breast milk samples with forever chemicals bolster calls for PFAS ban. We are basically killing ourselves and our next generation with these cancer-causing forever chemicals. And the more our industries put out into the environment, the more damage accumulates in all of us. There are safer options available. That's true. We have a lot of... You have to remember that the environment is a dump, right? The environment is a sink for everything. Come on, let's be frank. You have whales and flippers and fish and everything in this big ocean, and they're all doing their nasties in that ocean. They're all, So I mean, we are all living in a sink. The thing about it is, how dirty do we want that sink to get, or how polluted that sink to get? All right, let's continue here. Fully vaccinated. You can ditch the mask per CDC. Wonder how they will tell. The vaccine card, there's so many illegal ones out there. And that's the thing. I think what we got to do as well is we have to make sure that anybody found with an illegal, false vaccination card, they are forced to pay a heavy penalty for doing so. Julie Van Asdel just wanted to say hi, y'all. Gotta go pick up my liquor order and some carrots. Liquor and carrots? Liquor and carrots? What am I missing there, Julie? Help me out. Eric Hayes says, hi, hold on to your wallets. Lack of gas and the government really cares. Yeah, I think they care. Look, every government cares, okay? Every government cares. The idea is how effectively. Okay, let's see. No gas shortage, just gas gouging prices. Eric Hayes says, how can someone even have this point of view in this unbelievable, just not based on reality? Biden's energy secretary on gas. If you drove an electric car, this would not be affecting you. Yeah, I mean, we obviously are all in on making sure that we meet the president's goals of getting to a 100% clean energy by 2035 and net zero carbon emissions by 2050, Graham said. And if you drive an electric car, this would not be affecting you, clearly. How can someone even have this point of view on this time? It's unbelievable. Why wouldn't she have that point of view? It's the truth. If we had already embarked on our electrification as we should have, these types of problems would not occur. Right? Now we are going to have gas having to travel at 5 miles an hour up to the eastern coast. You know how long it takes at 5 miles an hour for gas to get from here to New Jersey? A very long time. Not only that, if it were electricity and some hacker got to the electric grid, once we fixed it, you turn it on, electricity moves at the speed of light. No, really. Electricity moves at the speed of light. Okay. Let's see. Nanette Bird Smith, they can make sure. Okay, let's see. Lawrence Sims, grifters got to get paid. Yes, they do. You know what I'm talking about. Micah Rudden said, Egberto government competition to private ISPs would break the regional monopolies and duopolies. There's at least 750 municipalities doing that. Yes, I do know that, sir. Bruce Pollard, Starlink will change everything. Hey, Bruce, is Starlink the one that I think are going to put like 16,000 satellites in the sky? And because they're low orbit, we won't have that stuff at all. Yvette, Avery, Herod, afternoon. PDR Posse, welcome everybody. I think Nanette meant prices. Okay, let's see. Egberto, was this graph you're talking about? Let me see if that's the graph. No, that's not the graph that I was talking about. The graph that I was talking about came out several years ago. It actually shows the relative displacement of wealth compared to everybody else's. Okay, let's see. Hey, Egberto, Martha Benton, welcome aboard. Bruce Pollard said net zero means nobody driving. Charlie Lindahl, yes, that's Starlink. Thank you, Charlie, for reminding me. I think, Charlie, if I'm not mistaken, you and I had some coffee over the weekend, and I think oh, by the way, yeah, I did meet with one of our PDR Posse folk, Charlie Lindahl. Charlie was doing some business for his wife in around Kingwood, and he called me up and said, Berto, what the hell are you doing? I'm like, I'm working. What else am I going to be doing, buddy? He said, well, take a coffee break. Come and meet me for some coffee. I'm in your area. So I was about to go get some food for my wife on Mother's, what was that, the day? Was that Saturday, I think it was? And then I said, hey, babe, can I go check out Charlie and then on the way bring back your food? And she said, okay, that's fine. Go see your brother. I said, all right, good. Charlie, was great seeing you. It was great having a cup of coffee with you, brother. Let's see. Electric cars doesn't need gas, so gas shortage won't affect electric cars. Yes, exactly. Okay, what is the show going to be about today? Let's have fun today. Let's have fun. You guys can keep sending the messages. I'll always take you guys because you have priority. But anyhow, title of the show, Lion is a litmus test for the GOP. COVID changes business. GOP is a GOP worth saving. That one is the article from Thom Hartmann today. I love Thom Hartmann, and and by the way, Thom Hartmann actually tweeted about my book. But is a GOP worth saving? Is this question, and I'm going to put that question in a couple hours to Bill Kristol because I'm supposed to be interviewing Bill Kristol a couple of hours after the show today. So I think it's today, actually. Let me make sure it's today. A couple of hours after the show, I'll be interviewing Bill Kristol, and we'll talk about the plight of the Republican Party. And when I do that, I think I'm going to play it on Friday. I'm going to ask you guys to make sure this is shared to all of your Republican brothers and sisters. I'm going to separate it out as well and I'll probably have some different pieces of it because, we don't share ideologies, but I do respect Bill as being a very, very consistent conservative. And that, you got to respect. Just like I tell you, most people are good. Most people are good. Anyway, let's go with our first video. The first video is Brother Miles Taylor. For those of you who want to remember who Miles Taylor is, Miles Taylor was, I think it was in 2017 or 2018, somebody wrote anonymously that many are staying in the administration, even though they don't agree with Donald Trump. They're staying in there to keep him sane. They're staying in there to protect the country. That's what they said. So let's go ahead and play him, and then we'll get it on the other side.
that the pandemic was really a disaster for
That's the wrong
major
one.
airlines and for Amtrak. How are those
This is the
companies
one.
doing now?
Miles, I welcome everybody to the effort to call out Donald Trump's enablers. I think he stopped being the story after the election, and it really revealed a Republican Party rotten to its core. But why stay a Republican?
Look, that's a great question, Nicole, and it's a question that we want to answer. And in fact, if there's not a satisfactory answer soon, I think the answer is to not be a Republican. But I think we learned three critically important things that help answer that question this week. One, right now in the Republican Party, lying is a litmus test to be in leadership. Not just lying to yourself, but lying to the country about something that happened in our election. Number two, I think we learned that the civil war in the Republican Party is not ending with Liz Cheney's ouster. The civil war within the party is just beginning. And number three, that civil war within the party is going to have enormous consequences for this country. And I'll leave you with one thing on this point, Nicole, and that is the last person to fight a civil war in this country, Ulysses S. Grant, said the next time there would be such a contest for America's existence, it wouldn't be between North and South over the Mason-Dixon line. It would be between patriotism and intelligence on one side and ignorance and superstition on the other. We now know which side of that line Liz Cheney stands, but the question for every Republican in America today is, where do I stand?
Well, where do your former colleagues stand? I mean, where do people like your old boss at DHS, John Kelly, stand? Where does H.R. McMaster stand? Where does John Bolton stand? Where does Jim Mattis stand? Where do your former colleagues, who know better than any other human beings on the planet just how rotten and corrupt to the core Donald Trump and Trumpism really is?
Well, you've named some people, Nicole, many of whom I hope will speak up in the coming days, weeks, and months. And I would use this appearance to encourage them and urge them, for the sake of the country, to stand up and say in public what they've said before in private. Now, what we're going to be announcing tomorrow is what you could call in shorthand an I'm Not Crazy coalition inside the Republican Party. We're going to announce a group of Republicans and ex-Republicans that say, look, we want rational, pragmatic governance. We want to return to it. But we're making a threat. And that threat is, if the GOP doesn't fix its act, then we're going to hasten the creation of an alternative.
The question is, what are we going to do? Are we going to buy into that theory that these guys have a great chance of winning the House and the Senate, and as such, we're in trouble? And if Miles Taylor and his cohorts don't save us, that somehow we'll be stuck with this Republican Party of crazies? Is that what we're looking at? I tell you one thing, folks. One of the reasons we show all the ills of the Republican Party is to really give us all that impetus that's going to be needed in 2022 to go out there and make sure that we take this thing. Because absent that, the country may not give us a chance again at democracy. Absolutely so. And there's something that I said there that I forgot, that I wanted to mention at the beginning of the show today. And the reason I wanted to mention it is that there are a lot of progressives and Democrats that are running around scared. They're listening to, right now, if you listen to McConnell, and if you listen to the House leader, what's his name? The House Minority Leader, you know who I mean. Gosh, my mind has gone sometimes. Anyway, if you listen to McCarthy, the House Minority Leader, they are trying to inculcate in the minds of people that it's an absolute certainty that in 2022 they will take the House and the Senate, right? They're doing all these machinations with their Trumpists because their assumption is that because it's the off year, because it's a new president, because the party in control is the totality of all the parties. Here's what I want to tell you guys. That is a psychological game that they're playing. There are a lot of forms of voter suppression. Voter suppression, what they're doing in Texas, in Florida, in Georgia, those are almost done deals. By the way, we can mitigate those. It's going to take, and in mitigating those, I think it's going to be a good thing. And what I mean by good thing, it's going to force us to do something that we don't often do. We have a tendency, as specifically Democrats, have a tendency to go into communities 2 or 3 months before an election and not really have a symbiotic relationship with that community. That doesn't work in a voter suppressive state. Going forward, and those of you that are listening to me that are into politics, that are into block walking and all that sort of thing, get with your local organization. To hell with the party. Get with your local organization, right? Whether that be a Democratic club, whether that be an environmental club, whether that be a clean energy club, whatever it is. And start going into those neighborhoods where things, you're going to win in those progressive neighborhoods. Those are people that go to vote every time, and they're serious. But when you go into the some Latino communities, or some black communities, or some Vietnamese communities, or some Asian communities, these people, many times, they live as if they don't think they matter to the body politic. Because again, we only show up when we want their vote. Right now, Biden is doing the right thing. Biden is making sure that they feel that a progressive government works for us all. So they can see that. They can feel that. They saw that in their bank accounts. They see that in the possibility of us getting more jobs. They see all these things. The other side are going to try to push things like, well, what you're doing is inflationary, to scare people. Oh, your products are going to cost more. They're going to cost a little bit more. But is that a problem? Should we, to save a few pennies, not employ a lot more people at a higher price? Because employing people at a living wage means a slightly higher cost that is less than that increase in their living wage. Is that a problem? No, it's not. So we have to preempt. We have to preempt their misinformation. We have to preempt their lies. And what I don't like, what I've seen on, let's say, MSNBC, CNN, and all these other stations that purport to give straight news, is I don't see them doing that necessary qualification. In other words, inflation, they have people scared, you know what, about inflation. Inflation is not a bad thing in a controlled environment. Inflation is not. Zero inflation meant passbooks were getting 0.5% gains. Zero inflation means that you don't have pricing power to change things. Moderate inflation is actually pretty good. And moderate inflation not only is fairly good, it's one way to mitigate the wealth of many. Example, if you are holding certain types of assets that are resistant to inflation, well, as inflation goes up, your wealth goes up as well, right? But if you're holding certain types of investments, it is a good way to cut, again, and also without taxes, to cut the value of said investment. All right, Eric Hayes says, will the markup in price and passing off rising costs by companies negate any money thrown at it? No. Actually, that's the point. Example, we can afford to give, and somebody please fact check this for me. I don't know the exact numbers, and that's why I need someone to fact check me. But if we increase every McDonald's employee to at least $15 per hour, that price of the burger only increases by a certain percentage, much less than what the total outlays of that McDonald's employee would be altogether. And that is because labor costs as a function of the entire enterprise is not all that much. Let's say 25% or so. And I'm just throwing those numbers out there. Now, Charlie Lindahl did send me an email. Charlie, I hadn't read the email yet about the lumber. I heard your message. An upcoming inflation problem right now is lumber pricing. True. Housing and all things that are dependent on lumber are high. But here's the issue. That is demand driven, right? It is demand driven. The forest didn't change other than the forest being burnt right now. Okay? I want you guys to hear this. We've lost a lot of lumber because a lot of forest has been burning. There you go. Okay, so I want to show you something. So a $15 price increase from what was researched by Rudnin puts a burger price up by 4%. So that may be 16 cents for a $4 burger. Right? For 16 cents for a burger that costs $4. That is worth it. I am willing to pay 16 cents more and go from there. I'll check the article out for sure, Charlie Lindahl. Let's see. Steve says, true people doing projects like my wife and me. Let's see what else we got. Senator Lindsey Graham, ranking minority member, hearing on audit in the Pentagon yesterday, put a document of $722 billion for DOD for fiscal year 22. That is ridiculous. All right, let's go. I'd be willing to pay an extra quarter for my burger if I knew people serving me the burger would have a living wage. And most people think that way. Most human beings of moral values, which means most, think that way. Now, it takes a lot. When Republicans try to make that an issue, it takes a lot for them to change the way humanity works, but they have been able to do that. Hell, they did it with 71 million Americans in the last election. But we can mitigate that by doing things the right way. Okay, I don't see Tom C. in here yet. We actually had an award. Tom C. is giving away, let me just go ahead and say that. For anybody who sends me an email to info@politicsdoneright.com, and please be somebody that doesn't really, I am going to ask you, the people that takes up the offer from our posse member, Tom C., I ask you to, if you can afford getting the book yourself, please do. But Tom is giving away two of the books that we do here on Politics Done Right. He's going to pay for two of the books for two people who are listening to the show right now. So if you send an email to info@politicsdoneright.com, send an email to info@politicsdoneright.com. Just say, tell us which one of our books that you want, and we'll select two of those emails and provide that book free of charge. We'll ship it to you free of charge on the courtesy of Thom C. The courtesy of Thom C., a PDR Posse member. So please consider again, send me an email at info@politicsdoneright.com, and I'm going to go through all the emails I get tonight, and we will award two books to that courtesy of our PDR Posse member, Thom C. All right, let's see. Lindsay, let's see what we got here. Charlie Lindahl said, check the whole article. I'm going to do that. May 12th, Bernie Sanders chairs hearing on audit in the Pentagon. That's great. Thanks, Restream. We'll have to check it after the show. Excellent. Eric Hayes, most people want to pay more for essential items. Think not if it hurts. Think not if it hurts. I don't know what that means. Okay. Australia's minimum wage is about $17, and a Big Mac costs a nickel more than here. Rethink the math with real-world examples. Governing is often copying what other governments do successfully. Exactly. Tom C. is here. Yes, I'm here. And I am about to donate $25 to Egberto, two of Egberto's books, and I will make sure to send that email to info@politicsdoneright.com, info@politicsdoneright.com, and I will ship the two books. We'll announce who are the recipients of the book as soon as we ship them. info@politicsandright.com, and we'll ship you the books. Thank you so kindly, PDR Posse member Tom C. U.S. national minimum wage should be $22. If we follow how productivity plus inflation, that's exactly what it should be. Okay, let's go ahead and do our pitch. Folks, let me tell you, we need your support. So if you are in politics, if you're on YouTube right now, you can click that join button and become a member of the PDR Posse, just like Tom has, just like Bridge MCP has, just like AVQ has, just like E2247 has. Eric Hayes, I don't know if you're a PDR Posse member. I don't think you are. Just click on the join button on YouTube, become a PDR Posse member. It's inexpensive, and you are supporting something that is worthwhile. You're supporting what we do here. That is to put out the progressive message and not do it in a manner that alienate our brothers and sisters on the right, but instead try to bring them into the fold and understand where they are as well. And by the way, our one and only PDR Posse member, Bridge MCP, was the designer of our mugs. She designed this mug here, and you're seeing it on the screen as I post it right now. You can go ahead and get that mug at our store, but you can also go ahead and get the mug. I'm putting the link inside of the feed right now, so you can get our mug at that link that I put in there. But if you don't see that join button on YouTube, you can also simply click on politicsandright.com/YouTube. politicsandright.com/YouTube. You can alternatively send us or support us via our Patreon securely. politicsandright.com/Patreon. Become a patron. Very inexpensive, just like becoming a YouTube PDR Posse member. Please go ahead and I suggest you join us as well at politicsandright.com/Patreon. And of course, just like Tom C just did, you can support us via PayPal, politicsandright.com/PayPal, politicsandright.com/PayPal. Now, if you want to get rid of the middle person, purchase our books, our cups, and everything at our store, politicsandright.com/store, politicsandright.com/store. But if you want to see all our books in one place, you can get them all at politicsdoneright.com/books, politicsdoneright.com/books. We simply could not possibly do this without you. Okay, what am I missing here? Oh, I didn't put the books on the screen. Well, it's always on the screen. There are the books on the screen. I have another video to show you, but before I show you the video, let me go ahead and check to see if anybody else has said anything. U.S. national minimum wage should be $22 an hour. I agree. And let me tell you how people have come up with that $22 an hour. That $22 an hour includes inflation, but more importantly, there's this stuff called productivity. As we've gotten machines to do the work, in other words, when we used to build cars, everybody had to have their welding equipment, their arc welder, and all of that, and all of that had to be done manually. When you work for McDonald's, you used to have to do everything. You used to have to move the things in the pot, all that kind of stuff. But we've become very, very automated. A lot of the patties and the different products come pre-made in the right sizes that you just have to pretty much heat up certain things, just fry certain things. There's a lot of efficiency. A lot of equipment was made designed by engineers based on the science they've learned from their scientists to create some good products that create great efficiencies, which means that for where we needed a lot more employees, we'd no longer need them. So everything works a lot more efficiently. And what that means, however, is for the same product or for the same amount of product being sold, the stockholders, the executives, they can command that much more money, profits out of the system. One would think that as society becomes more automated, as society becomes more advanced, because the totality of that advancement came from our collective knowledge, that we would all partake of the spoils, that it is ridiculous that a minimum wage is $7.25. It makes no sense. So if we figure out what the productivity increases in this country over the last 40 years has been, if we figure what inflation has been, very low over the last 8 years, but inflation over the 40-year period, the lowest pay in this country would be $22 per hour. Lowest pay would be $22 per hour. But instead, what we did is we have constantly migrated all that money to the top. That's why back in the 70s, when the CEO may have made, I don't know, I don't quote me here, but let's say on the order of maybe 100 times the average worker. I think it was even less than that. Now, the CEO is, our executives are 350 times the average worker. Not 350 times the lowest worker, the lowest paid worker, 350 times the average worker. Or maybe it's even the median worker, either the median or the average. I don't remember. Those are not the same. So what we've had is the grand legal theft of your work, your labor. But these are things that are not done in public. They are done behind the doors and we don't know about it. So they continuously have us fighting over crumbs. And at the same time, they put in our minds that but asking for what we rightfully deserve is socialism. I'll take it. You know why? I love being social. I love knowing that my brothers and my sisters are well taken care of, because there's one other thing that I know. I know that an engineer doesn't go hoarding money to be creative. I know that a scientist doesn't go hoarding money to be creative, to invent, to think, to want to learn. I am an engineer. I take the knowledge of scientists all over, the knowledge of everybody, and make something useful for society. That's how it works, right? But then we have this business class that all they know about is the manipulation of money. The stockbroker, those people that work in the financial, their sole purpose is the manipulation of money. Create nothing. Don't know. If you threw them on a desert island, they couldn't survive. But they're the best paid. And I talk about this a lot because it irks me that we so devalue ourselves into not demanding what's ours, what we've worked for. The engineer who creates the structural things, both logical and otherwise, to make it function, doesn't make the millions that these people who profit from their creations do. The people who sweep the floors that make it possible for us to exist in spaces, they don't command that. You know, we have to start thinking about things the right way. All right, let me go back to this before I do the last video. Lee Alexander, Mike Cisak says, there goes Egberto lying again. I want to ask my brothers and sisters on the right who always tell me when I tell these truths that I'm lying. When you say that, so that the audience is informed, please tell them what that is, what the lie is. As much as I would like to join, I can't do it. Disability doesn't pay well. That's all right, Lee Alexander. Send them an email to info@politicsdoneright.com to put your name into the pot for that book that Tom C is giving away. One of my book Tom C is giving away. Mike Cisak said the average CEO pay of all businesses is $117K. Wait a minute. I am the CEO of my media company. I make under $117K. So I'm not going to dispute that, but you're missing the point. We're talking about corporations. We're talking about publicly held major corporations. Sir, it's that simple. Again, that is a talking point that the right wing likes to use because there are a lot of businesses where the CEOs are barely even making 50 grand. So what they do is they pull down the average. Talk about medians, okay? All right. Paul Fleming, what did he say that was a lie? Thank you very much, Mike. You know, they like to say that he's lying. Average Senator, House Representatives, 174. What are they doing? And are the voters getting their money's worth? Well, you voted for them. So if they pay themselves 174, you must like that. Mike Cisak, Paul, when he says CEO pays 350 times the average, that is not a lie. That is a true. And why should we look at the top 500? Anyhow, let's move on. Marth Benton, whoop, Egberto. Thank you, Martha. Okay, Peggy Lopez, welcome aboard. William Blake talks of the mind forge menaces. These menaces are what must be removed to enable workers to see themselves fit to the fight for a dignified financial life through their pay. You don't compare the total average wage of hourly with just a few top corporations. That's how liars lie. No, liars lie when you try to deny the income inequalities that occurs with corporations and people in general. If you try to do that, if you forget that the CEOs of pharmaceutical companies make so many more millions than anybody else, and they have the effect that they have on all our lives. That is the reason. Egberto, the answer is no to the salary question on government, as they are self-interest. And don't the private corporation have self-interest? Eric, you live in Kingwood. How many cable companies can you choose from in Kingwood? Kingwood. What's the name of it? Suddenlink is privately held, or rather, it's a private corporation. How different is having Suddenlink, the sole provider of cable in Kingwood, different than if the government were providing it in Kingwood, just not having a profit motive, which means the prices could be a lot less. That's your own argument, sir. All right. Businesses are going to change. The entire COVID pandemic has really changed business. No, there's only one cable company that serves my area. One. Okay, here's the deal. Business is going to change. I want you to listen to this that I just heard. I just processed it before I came on, and I want you guys to listen to this, and then we'll take it on the other side.
That the pandemic was really a disaster for major airlines and for Amtrak. How are those companies doing now? And what do you think this new mask guidance will mean for their bottom line going forward?
Well, it's certainly going to help. I mean, listen, I was on a family vacation for the first time in more than a year last week, flew down to Florida, and it was a packed flight, and the airports were pretty full. Now, there's still about 1 million flyers short of pre-pandemic because the business traveler, by and large, has not been flying. But to Ron's point about the etiquette, I think we are likely to see that culture that if you've been to Asia, a lot of people are often seen wearing masks out on the street, in the airports, and the airlines, maybe because they have a cold and they don't want to spread it, or because they don't want to get a cold. I've talked to a lot of experts in the airline industry over the last year who think that, in fact, these things are going to become a lot more common, that you're going to see people wearing these even after the pandemic. They're going to wear these on planes. They're going to wear these in bus stations because they don't want to get a cold or a flu or, God forbid, the next pandemic. That this may become a little bit more of the culture, maybe not as extreme as we see in Asia, where this is very common on the streets of Tokyo, for example, but really just a more common step that you see people taking when they don't want to get sick when they're traveling. That may be one of the defining and permanent changes as a result of the pandemic. But to the last point about will business travel return, boy, you're absolutely right. That is going to be a big challenge for these airlines that have found that Zoom, what you and I are talking on right now, this has worked really well. You can see my expression. I can see yours. We have a pretty good sense of how each other is reacting to our words. And if Zoom and Skype can replace the business face-to-face transaction, that's going to definitely cut into the bottom line for airlines and hotels and all of these other industries that rely on business travel.
Stephanie Rule, what about that? I mean, is there any data to support how what Thom is talking about, the sort of the new Zooming now that we have done in place of going into businesses, or into our offices, how that has really changed the way we work and whether it's changed businesses' profits?
We've heard it on earnings calls from Fortune 500 CEOs over the last year. Not spending money on business travel is a huge savings in corporate America, and you're going to see some of it come back. As Thom was saying that, I could hear hotel CEOs and airline CEOs weeping in the corner, but it's true. Business travel is how the travel industry makes their money. They charge full fare for those tickets, for those hotel rooms, and that's how they give us, when we go on our personal travel, good deals. So this is going to be an issue for the travel industry. And for corporate America, yes, we have learned over the last year that many businesses have been able to survive, maybe not thrive in certain areas, but they've been very productive. So you're going to see, as we return, cuts that happened over the last year stay in place because businesses don't need so many employees. They don't need so much travel. And in the short term, you actually might see some smaller customer-facing businesses, I know this sounds crazy, actually use these changes as marketing materials, right? We are fully vaccinated. If you'd like to come to our movie theater, to our restaurant, and show your vaccination, well, guess what? Nobody has to wear a mask. Remember, these are private businesses. They can dictate the rules. Just like no shirt, no shoes, no service, they could say, I am a business where everyone here is fully vaccinated. That could draw, I mean, I would go to a business like that. I'd take all my kids to a movie theater if I knew everyone was vaccinated.
Yeah. Yeah, no shoes, no shirt, no vaccine, no business is the new decal.
Now, let me just add something to that, because there are a lot of other differences that are going to occur. As a lot of people start to work at home, all those restaurants that we would go to during our lunch break, all those stores that we would go to buy little nicks and knacks to eat, snacks while we were on the job, all those gas stations that we would go across because we're commuting every day, all of them will see a decrease in revenue. So there's going to be a whole turnaround as to what's going to happen. Of course, it also means that the electric companies are likely to make a bit more money as more people stay home and run their lights and run their computers more at home. Of course, likewise, they call in for a snack. Delivery is going to be taken up, just like how Amazon made a killing because a lot of people weren't going out then. So there's going to be a rearranging of the economy. And what we have to do going forward is have some latitude in understanding that when this remake occurs, it means that people are going to be asking for a different type of salaries. They're going to be asking for different types of rewards, all of that. And one of the very important reasons we need to pass all those trillions of dollars is whenever you have a flux, a change that is such a disruptive change like we are having, we need to make sure that we don't have any gaps where they can stop. We have to make sure that kids have a place to go and that parents can afford where to take those kids. We have to make sure that there are transportation acts taking place that people can get to these new places of employment. We have a lot of work to do in a changing economy, and only a forward-looking progressive president can see that, as opposed to one who simply believes in a status quo. And admirably, I think currently in that portion of what he's doing, the current government that we have is doing a good job. Now, for Mr. Cisak, as far as the top CEOs making 300 plus times, I think when I said it, I probably said CEOs and I didn't put top CEOs in the thing, which is what you took offense to. Well, this is the PolitiFact says the answer to that, mostly true. Thank you so kindly. Apologies will be accepted. All right, let's go ahead, and I think Sims sent me a video. I think I should play that video that Sims sent me because I believe it's worthwhile. It's from the I think it's from who? Joanne Reed. Let's go ahead and play it. It had to do with the NRA. Let's go ahead and do that, and then that'll make sense.
2017, the National Rifle Association was at the peak of political influence. It had just spent a record sum to help elect the now former president, launched its own online TV channel, and it had even rolled out insurance policies to cover those who might actually shoot another human being. But now, just 4 short years later, the group is facing the harsh reality that its days might be numbered. Last summer, New York Attorney General Letitia James sued to dissolve the gun rights group, saying it has abused its status as a nonprofit organization. As the culmination of an 18-month investigation, the suit accused the NRA of numerous violations, including self-dealing and inappropriate spending on its top executives, especially CEO Wayne LaPierre. And rather than stand his ground, however, LaPierre is running scared in an effort to evade responsibility. The NRA is seeking bankruptcy protection so that they can reincorporate in Texas. And that means their fate is now in the hands of a Texas judge. This comes after we learned the embarrassing details of the NRA's lavish spending on LaPierre's extravagant lifestyle. According to the lawsuit and investigative reports, the NRA spent more than $500,000 on private flights for LaPierre, including 8 family trips to the Bahamas. And they paid his personal travel agent more than $200,000 a year. LaPierre expensed more than $100,000 in membership fees for a private golf club. And he spent $39,000 in a single day on a shopping spree for clothing. LaPierre even tried to get the NRA to pay for his $6 million mansion in Texas. And he often made use of a vendor's yacht, which was an unreported gift in excess of the NRA's limit. And now that the NRA is defending its bankruptcy petition in a Texas courtroom, LaPierre and the NRA's lawyers are answering for some of these expenditures. Take the private jets, for example. They were necessary to protect LaPierre's safety, according to his lawyer. And that yacht, according to LaPierre, those sailing trips were actually a security retreat where he could hide out after mass shootings. Poor Wayne LaPierre actually said the yacht was the one place that I hope I could feel safe. In other words, LaPierre doesn't just need guns to feel safe. Pew, pew, pew. He needs a yacht, private jets, and a tropical vacation for his own self-protection. Oh, and did I mention that the NRA also paid for mosquito control at LaPierre's home? Even that, they claimed, was for security purposes. You know, those little buggies can be dangerous. But aside from that absurd defense of using a nonprofit as a personal piggy bank, LaPierre made another startling admission yesterday. As the New York Times reports, he had kept his organization's recent bankruptcy filing secret from almost all of the NRA senior officials, including its own lawyer and most of its directors. And all of that is what makes Wayne LaPierre today's absolute worst. Not everyone can afford the luxury of hiding out on a yacht to feel safe. The rest of us just want common sense gun safety measures.
Yeah, the rest of us just want common sense gun measures. Oops, I got to stop that. The rest of us just want common sense gun measures. Hey, who sent me that? Paul Fleming. Thank you. That was a good one. I like to watch Joyanne Reid, and that was one that I didn't see. But it is amazing that the NRA has screwed so many of its own people. Many people who are poor, they have their guns, but they think they need to be a member of the NRA because they're a good Republican, they're a good gun owner, and they're going to go ahead and support the cause. They're not supporting anything other than paying off senators, paying off Congress people, and ensuring that LaPierre has a hell of a life on your money, a life you could only dream of having. Folks, we are coming close to the end of the show. I want to remind you all to please support Politics Done Right. We cannot do this. We really cannot do this without you. So I ask you so kindly to please support us if you're on YouTube, click on the join button to become an official member of our PDR Posse. We're going to have a PDR page attached to it. I already have the PDR page. If you go to politicsdoneright.com/PDR Posse, that is where that's going to be our backstop for everything PDR Posse. And we are going to have quite a bit others. I think I'm going to do, before I go off to visit my daughter in D.C. for a couple of days, we're probably going to do another Zoom meeting. But anyhow, please go ahead and support us. If you don't see that join button, go ahead and go to politicsandright.com/YouTube, meaning if you're on Facebook, or if you're on Instagram, or if you're on Periscope, or wherever you are, just go ahead and go to politicsandright.com/YouTube. You can alternatively go ahead and support us on Patreon, politicsandright.com/Patreon. Patreon is spelled Patreon, politicsandright.com/Patreon. You can also support us at PayPal, politicsandright.com/PayPal, politicsandright.com/PayPal. And of course, if you want to get rid of the middle person, just go to our store, politicsandright.com/store. And if you want to get all our books, go ahead and go to politicsandright.com/books. Folks, I know you could be anywhere. You could be anywhere, but you're spending some time with me. I'm honored. This is your show. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the team. Please encourage others to join our posse. We get most of our views we get on podcasts, of course, podcast, vlogcast. That's where most of the time that it goes. But I'd love to get a more interactive, lot more people watching live. So help us do that. Tell people about us, and then let's get busy. Mike Cisak says, actually, the NRA leader had legit expenses. However, union members were indicted. 11 union officials charged with racketeering, fraud, and... it is amazing. Mike, a $267,000 bill for clothes. Over $200,000 for clothes. Actually, the NRA leader had legit expenses. How does a farmer, a good rancher that has to take a second job to pay his bill, how do you feel about yourself, my brother, that you can be sending money to the NRA led by this man who spends at one sitting $200,000 plus in clothes? What gives? How could you possibly support that? How does your mind work? Please help me see that. I got to go now, but at some other time. Anyway, we'll talk some other time. My name is Egberto Willis. This is Politics Done Right. And you know how I end this baby. I am what? Out! We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.